Half the firewood you burn this winter will produce zero heat, not because your stove is inefficient, not because the wood is bad, because it's wet. A green log is 50% water by weight. Every BTU that goes into boiling that water is a BTU that never warms your home. The smoke you see is heat escaping, and most people stacking for winter are getting this wrong right now. Most people stack firewood the same way their grandfather did, and they are losing half their heat. The problem isn't the wood, it's the moisture, and the fix starts months before the first cold night. Here is exactly how to stack and season a whole winter's supply so every log burns hot, clean, and dry. A freshly cut tree is a water pipeline. Before it hits your stove, an oak log can be nearly half water by weight, not damp, soaked. When you toss that log onto a fire, the first thing your flames have to do is boil that water out. Every drop of moisture inside that wood has to hit 212 degrees Fahrenheit and turn to steam before the wood fibers themselves can ignite. That energy comes straight out of your potential heat. A fire burning wet wood uses up to half its energy, just drying itself. So while you are sitting in front of a roaring blaze, feeling the warmth on your face, half the heat that could be in your living room is heading straight up the chimney as invisible steam. And steam does not travel alone. It carries with it tiny particles of unburned wood tar called creosote. Every winter, that creosote condenses on the inside of your chimney, building up in layers. It is highly flammable. A single spark can ignite it, turning your chimney into a blowtorch. The National Fire Protection Association lists creosote buildup as the leading cause of chimney fires in the United States. Thousands of homes burn every year because of wet wood. But here is where most people get it wrong. They think dry wood is about time. Leave it outside for a year, and it is ready. Wrong. The University of Maryland ran a study on hickory, one of the densest hardwoods. They cut trees into two piles. One pile was left as unsplit rounds, full logs. The other pile was split into pieces 6 inches thick. After 12 months of sitting uncovered, the unsplit rounds still held over 30% moisture. Unburnable. Wet. The split pieces dropped to 20% in just 6 months. Half the time. The difference was not time. It was surface area. And that is where the heat of your winter is hiding. Inside the geometry of your woodpile. And there is one rule about stacking that changes how fast your wood dries. A rule the old-timers knew and modern efficiency studies have proven. I will show you that next. That rule is simple. Air must move through the stack, not around it. Most people pile logs so tight they create a solid wall. A wall blocks the wind. Without wind, moisture sits in place. The outside logs dry, the inside ones rot. The fix is geometry. Stack your firewood in a crosshatch pattern. Lay 2 pieces down parallel. Then lay 2 more on top, perpendicular. 2 more on top of that, parallel again. The pile becomes a grid of air channels. Every log gets wind. Every face breathes. It takes an extra 60 seconds per row. It cuts dry time nearly in half. The old-timers called this a rick. They did not have moisture meters. They did not need them. They knew this wood burned hotter, caught faster, and left almost no smoke. Today, you can know exactly when your wood is ready. For $25, a moisture meter removes the guesswork. Push the pins into a freshly split face, not the end grain. You are looking for 15 to 20%. Below 15 is excellent. Above 20, give it more time. Above 25. Do not bring it indoors. Above 30. It is not firewood. It is a science experiment in disappointment. The University of Maryland study proved why splitting is not optional. Bark is a waterproof jacket. It locks moisture inside. The only escape route is the exposed grain. A round log has almost none. Split it once and you double the surface area. Split it again and you double it again. Pieces 3 to 6 inches thick hit the sweet spot. Thicker and the center stays wet for years, hiding behind a dry shell. Thinner and they burn too fast, sending you out into the cold to reload in the dark. 6 inches across, the diameter of a coffee can. That is your target. But the geometry above ground is only half the equation. The biggest mistake I see happens at the bottom. Wood stacked directly on soil soaks up ground moisture like a wick. The bottom row becomes a sponge. Rote spreads upward. Your entire winter rots from the ground up. Lift the stack. Use pallets, cinder blocks, or pressure-treated timbers. 6 inches minimum of clear air underneath. This creates a chimney effect. Air enters beneath the wood, warms as it rises through the stack, and carries moisture out the top. It is passive and relentless. The sun does the rest. This is the point where most people stop. They split correctly. They stack crosshatch. They elevate. And months later they pull a log that hisses and sputters and fills the room with smoke, because they ignored the one thing that can undo everything else. Cover. Most people throw a blue tarp over the top and call it done. That tarp traps moisture underneath. It creates a greenhouse. Mold grows. The wood begins to rot from the top, while the bottom rots from the ground. The Amish, who heat entirely with wood, and have done so for centuries, do something completely different. And it is the difference between a fire that sizzles and one that roars on the first cold night. I will show you exactly how to do it next. They do not use tarps. The Amish top cover their wood piles with a single sheet of corrugated metal, sometimes rough-sawn boards, pitched at a shallow angle. The overhang extends a foot past the stack on every side. Rain hits the roof and runs off clean. The sides stay completely open. Wind moves through the crosshatch without obstruction. Sunlight hits the wood directly, heating the metal just enough to create a warm air cap that draws moisture upward. No greenhouse, no trapped humidity, no mold. A tarp draped over the sides is a moisture trap. A roof with open sides is a drying machine. The difference is visible in 2 weeks, but even perfect geometry cannot override biology. Not all wood is equal, and that is where most winter heating plans fail before the first log is split. Oak is the gold standard. Dense, heavy, long burning. But fresh-cut oak can hold 40% moisture, and its grain structure is so tight that moisture moves out slowly. Oak needs 2 full years of seasoning, not 1 winter. 2. If you cut an oak tree this fall, you are stacking for the winter after next. Earning it early is like trying to boil a lake with a match. Maple and ash are the practical middle ground. They dry in 12 to 18 months. They split clean, ignite reliably, and produce a steady, even heat. Birch dries faster still, under a year, but its bark is waterproof, so it will rot from the inside out if left unsplit. Softwoods like pine and fir season in 6 to 9 months. They ignite fast, burn hot, and make excellent kindling, but they consume quickly. A smart woodpile mixes hardwoods for overnight burns and softwoods for quick morning heat. The Amish stack these woods in separate rows because they understand each species has its own drying clock. And then there is a factor that costs nothing and cuts weeks off your season. Freeze-thaw. When water trapped inside wood fibers freezes, it expands. It fractures cell walls at a microscopic level. When it thaws, moisture escapes faster. Wood cut and split in late fall, left exposed through a full winter of freezing nights and thawing days, will be measurably drier by spring than wood split in April. The freeze-thaw cycle is a free mechanical press doing the work for you while you sleep. This is why the old-timers cut firewood in November. Not convenience, physics. Now, I want you to walk out to your woodpile and do a test. Pick up 2 split pieces and bang them together. Dry wood rings with a sharp, hollow crack like a bat hitting a ball. Wet wood thuds, dull and dead. Look at the ends. Dry wood shows radial checks, small cracks spreading from the center like spokes on a wheel. The bark should be loose or already fallen. If the bark is still tight and the ends are smooth, that log is holding water. There is one more variable that can sabotage everything I have just shown you, even with perfect stacking and perfect species selection. Wind direction. If your stack sits against the north wall of a building in permanent shade, with no prevailing breeze, it will season glacially. A study from the University of Tennessee found that wood stacked in full sun, with good air movement, dried twice as fast as wood stacked in shade, with restricted airflow. Stack south-facing, if you can. Give it morning sun. Give it the prevailing summer breeze. Put it where you would want to stand on a hot day. That is where your wood dries fastest. But when it is done right, when all of these pieces click together, something remarkable happens the first time you strike a match. And I am not just talking about more heat. I am talking about a fire that is almost silent. No hissing, no sizzling, no black smoke curling out of the chimney. A clean flame that starts fast, burns bright, and puts real warmth into a room. Set that next to a fire built with wet wood, and you would swear they were burning 2 different materials. I have done that test, and I am going to show you exactly what it looks like. This is what happens when you set fire to a log that has not been seasoned. The first thing you hear is hissing. Water inside the wood turns to steam and escapes through the grain, screaming as it goes. The fire burns orange and lazy, struggling to climb above the steam. Smoke pours out the chimney in thick white plumes because the fire isn't hot enough to burn the gases. The glass on the stove door coats black in minutes. The room is losing heat through the walls faster than the fire can produce it, and what heat it does produce is diluted by the draft pulling room air up the flue to feed a choking burn. Now I loaded a second stove with wood dried to 18% moisture. Seasoned 11 months under a metal roof in open-air crosshatch-stack. I lit the kindling at the top, using a top-down fire lay, and within 2 minutes, the firebox was filled with clean, rolling flame. The kindling caught the smaller splits, which caught the larger ones. There was almost no visible smoke from the chimney, just a heat shimmer. The stove top climbed past 400 degrees Fahrenheit in under 15 minutes. It threw usable heat into the room for 4 hours on a single load of 3 splits. And when I opened the door to reload, the glass was clean. The fire was silent except for the low, deep crackle of dry wood burning at full efficiency. The difference in heat energy is measurable. A pound of dry wood produces roughly 7,500 BTUs. A pound of the same species with 25% moisture produces roughly 6,200. You lose nearly 20% of your potential heat. Not because the stove is bad, not because the wood species is wrong, because you paid to heat one thing. your home, and instead you are boiling water. This is where the stacking, the splitting, the cover, the sun, the wind, it all clicks into place. You are not just stacking firewood, you are storing BTUs. Every log you split to 6-inch faces, every row you crosshatch, every inch of ground clearance, every sheet of metal roofing, angled to shed rain, all of it increases the energy density of your fuel. And when winter hits and a storm takes out the power lines for 3 days, that woodpile is your generator. It runs on the sun that dried it, the wind that cured it, and the physics of a clean, hot burn. One final number. The EPA rates wood stoves for efficiency and emissions based on tests with dimensional lumber at a specific moisture content. They test with dry wood. If you burn wet wood, your stove does not perform to its EPA rating. It pollutes more, it burns cooler, and it produces exactly the kind of chimney clogging, creosote that kills thousands of homes every year. The only variable between a clean certified stove and a smoke-belching hazard is the moisture in the wood you feed it. The solution is not a better stove. It is a better woodpile, and the time to build it is now, before the ground freezes, before the first snow, before you find yourself standing in the cold, looking at a stack of logs that should have been drying 6 months ago. Most people look at a woodpile and see a chore. After today, I hope you see something else. A battery, a solar battery that stores a summer's worth of sunlight in every split log, waiting for you the moment the temperature drops. The difference between a cold house and a warm one has nothing to do with how much you paid for your stove. It has everything to do with what you fed it. The Amish knew this centuries ago. We are just now catching up. If this video saved you a winter of smoky fires and wasted money, I have put together something that goes deeper. It is the full system covering every piece I have shown you. The stack dimensions, species selection, roof design, and the exact tools I use in one place. The link is in the first pinned comment. Hit subscribe if you want to see more of what works, not what is advertised. I will see you in the next one.